Hello, I'm Professor Ginkgo, and once again, I am here to ask the hard-hitting questions of the monster world. You see, I'm streaming on my Twitch, twitch.tv/PhosphatRAP, wink wink, nudge nudge, go check that out. And anyways, I was very hungry one day on stream, and that got me thinking, what monsters in Monster Hunter Rise are edible? Gypseros would be not super tasty, right? Because it's so rubbery and stretchy that I don't think it'd be very good. But any Elder Dragons, I feel, be edible. Cantor doesn't count as an Elder Dragon, but I feel like the amount of meat it provided would be pretty good. Or Ukulos. I think Ukulos actually tastes better. I don't know why, I just get that vibe. I don't know. But how tasty would they be? That's the question. I guess the question is not if you're getting cursed after eating it, but how tasty would it be and would it kill you if you ate it? So after talking with my chat, I went over every single monster in the game and ranked them based on how edible I think they are, based on a few things. This was a long one, let me tell you. I lost my mind several times. I'm done with this. This script took me so long. So, first reasoning. Lore. If a monster in canon is delicious, then it's delicious. End of story. Even if I think it would taste weird. Game says it's delicious, so I have to defer to it. The second is looking at the monster's abilities and movement. So first of all, we all know that there are light and dark meat. Light meat comes from fast-moving muscle fibers used for quick burst action, and it gives a light, lean taste. Those are the meat that you'd find in chicken and sometimes pork, depending on where your cut is. Dark meat, however, comes from slow-moving muscle fibers, which those are used in long-term sustained actions, and it gives a more rich taste. For example, that would be something like steak from a cow. Now, different animals have different concentration, as I was alluding to. Birds have more fast-moving muscle fibers, while livestock give more dark meat. This isn't one-for-one, however. Like ducks, for example, are birds, but they're often compared to more darker meat, considering how much they're fatty. Now, in general, how an animal moves in part dictates due to how good it would be to eat. Diet is also something to keep in mind. Predators don't usually end up all that tasty, at least land predators, and instead herbivores in general are way more flavorful, and scavengers as well as predators tend to be more oily, greasy, and more prone to having a lot of parasites on them. So in general, we can trust that herbivores at least taste a little better than their carnivorous counterparts. So with that being said, let's rank some monsters. So, starting with the lowest tier, we have the monsters that are either completely inedible or extremely dangerous to eat unless you're a trained chef. So, first of all, let's start with the ones that probably would get you sick. We have a few that have parasites on them, or viruses in the case of Gore and Shigaru, which is a way to get several foodborne diseases, like the current illness that is plaguing the world right now is probably a foodborne disease that started. Kezu specifically is in this tier because several drop mention that Kezu meat, although looking good, is extremely inedible. Due to the large lamprey, I don't think it would be any tasty regardless, but I do think that the meat would have use in display meat, similar to how restaurants and fast food places set up display meat to take pictures and stuff like that. Gothorog is also here, it being most similar to a polar bear. Polar bears don't eat anything that are plants, although polar bear meat does have a record of being eaten. I'm putting it here because it really shouldn't be eaten, but most people eat it because they have no other choice. It's an apex predator, so it's infected with parasites, and it's said to be coarse and greasy. Also, it is mainly here because if you eat polar bear liver, you die because you overdose on vitamin A. So, yeah, I'd say it's maybe borderline here, but if it has a chance to kill you and you don't know how to prepare it, it goes here. Speaking of which, all the toxic and paralytic monsters go here. Okay, so although we eat toxic animals in the real world, like fugu, which is a very well-known, potentially toxic dish. Now, fugu in particular is interesting. The meat comes from pufferfish, and pufferfish are rich in tetrodotoxins, TTX. TTX is a compound found in a lot of animals, but they're mainly found in a lot of tetradoforms, which include pufferfish, sunfish, and a whole lot of those oceanic weirdos. TTX is an extremely nasty toxin. The toxin blocks sodium channels, which basically shuts down your entire nervous system and acts like basically an EMP. That means no messages can go in or out of your brain, which means that you stay conscious as you go limp because no messages can be sent to your muscles. In higher doses, your body will slowly choke itself to death because no messages can be sent to your lungs as you are conscious during the entire thing. Yeah, it's not a pleasant way to go out. I don't know why we eat fugu, because that is, I don't know who would look at a poisonous animal and be like, I'm going to eat this today. But, you know, we have this, but I'm putting it here because I don't see a lot of people really knowing how to prepare this. I'm sure Basarios and Volvodon have tender meat. Volvodon in particular is similar to an armadillo, which are said to be tasty in some regions of the US. I can see Volvodon being like a land fugu. Experienced chefs cooking up the monster to eat. Bragi also looks fatty and tender, but I think most people should stay away from these animals. Basil Geist is here too, not for the person eating it, but as a danger to the chef, because an animal with the explosive organs means that whoever's carving up the animal will probably have to have special training. Also, I think it would be unpleasant because the animal is an opportunist hunter, and most of that bulk on the body being scales, not fat. I think the tail really be the only good part of the animal if it has anything. Valstrax is also in a similar boat. I don't want to eat anything that has jet fuel for blood. That does not sound good at all. Here we have the unpleasant tier. These are mostly animals that won't kill you if you ate them, but I don't think they'd be tasty for more people. Some people with non-standard palates or experienced chefs might change your mind, but I don't think in general a lot of these animals would be anything to write home about. I'm sure you're wondering what this poisonous monster is doing here, like the Remabra and the Camellios. I couldn't find a drop from the Camellios that suggests that the flesh is poisonous. It doesn't even have a poisonous sac like the other ones. Everything about the Camellios, though, has text mentioning that it feels off, but I imagine the meat having a weird texture to it too. So for those of you texture guys, probably no Camellios meat. But now we're being flying snakes, I would imagine are pretty edible. Poison snakes in South America, for example, are regular eaten as starved bushmeat. For example, rattlesnakes and other animals in there. It's said to be pretty gamey, but tastes like chicken. So if the comparison's 1-to-1, it might be fairly safe to eat, but a bit unpleasant. It might go further up, but it may not be 1-for-1, and the potential toxicity makes me put it here. Also, I'm sure you've noticed pretty much all the animals with a body plan and diet matching predator with quick burst muscles go here. That's Narga, Mizusune, Tobikadachi, Varioth, Velocidrome, Zinogre, Seregios, Astalos, Boggy, Somnicanth, and Izuchi. Magnamalo is similar to a tiger, so I don't think it tastes good either, similar vein to all the other ones. Sure, Magno Dongo exists, but that's themed. You don't hunt Magnamalo for the quest to start for it. It's a themed Dongo. You don't use parts of that. Tigrex and Anjanath have an interesting thing. Paleontologists have actually answered this question multiple times in terms of what dinosaurs would taste like. So for T-Rex, interesting note, it's theorized that they would taste similar to living predator dinosaurs like hawks, which have meat that is said to be pungent and gamey, so not super tasty. It'd be fairly fatty, but I don't think it would be good. Also, as we mentioned, parasites, I wouldn't eat this. Similar to that, the monkey monsters are also here. Monkey isn't something people find appetizing or tasty for that matter. Next up, Kushala Deora. I think the meat would be pretty tender, but it doesn't seem really tasty, and it's likely it's very metallic due to the amount of iron that's in the body. Also, it rusts. I don't think having my meat that would rust would be very good. So, Zamite and the missing Zamtrios are also here. Now, shark isn't commonly eaten in the US, and it's not super uncommon to eat around the world, though. Greenland shark meat, for example, is a fairly pungent fermented dish. It is an acquired taste at best. Shark meat is also used in some chips in the UK or in Australia. Shark fin soup is an infamous dish. A lot of sharks being hunted for only their fins and thrown back into the sea, most of the time alive and just slowly dying. this dish in particular is highly unethical because it is really unsustainable. It's not a lot of meat for what you're getting. You're fishing, for example, for shark fin soup would take about 75 million sharks at least. And also, it's more of a texture thing, so you can easily get it substituted for cheaper and a lot less shark killing. It's also, shark is high in mercury due to them being predators high on the food chain. So mercury is a toxin that builds up in oceanic predators that are usually higher up on the food chain, and eating in small doses is fine, but in high concentration, like would be in sharks or marlin or whatever, it could end up having brain damage. And so yeah, the meat's poisonous due to the mercury content. Urea is also common in the body of the shark, which quickly turns ammonia when it dies. So that means unless you soak it for a pretty long time, it smells like piss. So it goes here. Now, like what we saw in the polar bear, remember kids, not everything we eat is good for us. Okay, here we have animals in the edible tier. Now, these are animals that you could eat. They'd taste okay with a little effort needed to make them edible. So despite being poison element, Pookie goes here, herbivore, and it stores poison based on what it's been eating recently. So in theory, you could isolate one that wasn't eating poison, or something that was more mild and would come out all right, I think. The bugs here, along with Karachi Ghoul, here mainly humans have been eating bugs for thousands of years. It's only really recently that we've kind of stopped eating bugs. I doubt a lot of people in the Western world today would consider eating it unless they had no better options. But bugs are pretty rich in protein and fairly nutritious meat. I just put them here because most people don't like eat them. Ibushi and Narwa or elder dragons, but the meat didn't seem to be particularly poisonous, and they look like eel, which I like eel. I think they would taste good. They also drop in pre-made chunks for you, so I think it'd be alright. A good chunk of these monsters are also, I think, fairly inoffensive, but they just don't go farther up on the tier because I think they just wouldn't taste all that great. In Ludrot's case, in particular, I would really like that tail. That tail looks amazing. I think the tail would be great, but I think it'd be a waste because the rest of the body's kind of thin outside of that sponge, and I think it would be not super good. Also, I think the rest of the body wouldn't be tasty, but I would like that tail. There's a few monsters, though, I'm not sure entirely belong here. Sorry with Teastra, I maybe should have put a borderline down, but after researching this video, which by the way, I have learned a lot about how some animals taste that I've never thought about. Like, I didn't know people eat polar bear, and apparently people eat lion. There's a place in LA that makes lion tacos. I don't know why you would sell lion meat. Also, this menu reminds me of that one scene from Pirates Bands of Misfit where they're all eating those endangered animals. Got stuff like so many exotic animals here. It's so weird. I don't get it. But the people who try lion say it tastes like beef. Naked predator, we kind of gamey, and I don't feel I need to eat a lion, not to mention parasites. Take it with a grain of salt. Despite Azuros being a bear, we put Gosfrago lower down, but Azuros, I think, maybe borderline up. Now, although I mentioned that predators are a bit gamey, bear meat is very nice, I think, as far as predator meat goes. As long as it hasn't had a super meaty diet, it's able to pretty much eat and enjoy it. Azuros eats a lot of honey, and I remember reading a Narnia book, and they mentioned that people eat bears, and that the ones that eat a lot of honey taste pretty good. So, I think it'd go here, maybe further up, but Garon Golem is weird. It's a primate, so points against that. And it honestly could go anywhere here, because it entirely depends on the sapin. Now, a monster with its own marinade sounds pretty tasty, but a monster that comes with its own potentially explosive marinade, less so. So if it's inert, I think I'll put it up here, but if the sap is still explosive, it goes further down. So, questionable. Uluyaku and Achnostome might belong further up, but I think they'd have a lot of fast twitch fibers, so they might be too lean for some people, including myself. I think Kulu would be a lot better than Achnostome, but they're practically the same in terms of build. So, here we go. Good eats. Here are the monsters that most people, I think, would be inclined to eat. So, in general, we have monsters that drop raw meat. I figured that these are the ones average people know to butcher. In terms of most tasty, I would say Popo. They drop Popo tongue, which is mentioned to be a delicacy I like tug. It's really tasty. I really like popo lingua tacos. That would be really good. Least tasty here is probably bombaji, because it's not as fat as you think. That's mainly gas, so I don't think it would be as good as the others on the list. But in general, I think all the raw meat drops are fairly average. Some weighing more than others, but that's just how it is. Delicacy is here because it drops monster guts, which are said to be delicacy. Also, the carassopons is normally here. The small crabs are also here too. I think Diablos tastes pretty good. A lot of that whole meat is hidden right behind big carapace, so I think the meat would be nice, soft, and tender. Although it is pretty quick, I feel it has a lot of power behind, so I feel it's more like red meat than white meat on it. It eats a lot, so it probably would have a decent amount of fat. Although it might be a little stringy considering it is in the desert. It is also an herbivore, so you don't have to worry about it being super gamey. And yeah, I think it would taste pretty good. Diablo's curry. Sweet, almost coconut aloe flavor naturally comes from the creature's diet. Stew slowly in a Dutch oven to break down some cuteness fat. Lagombi is what I assume is tasty because it's a rabbit and people like to eat rabbit meat. I don't like rabbit meat because I had a pet rabbit growing up, so it might belong here. But I'm a person that refuses to kill Lagombi and I'll always capture it 100%. So it's going here. I can't put it farther up. Dermatitis is here. Coelacanths taste horrible because the amount of urea and wax and oils in their meat. But although it looks like a coelacanth, it doesn't behave like a coelacanth. I think it would taste a lot better. They're a bit more active than normal coelacanths, and I get catfish vibes from this. I don't personally like catfish unless it's fried, but I can't deny it's a step above bushmeat, so it goes here. Fried Dermatitis. Muddy and meaty like catfish, but fried in pound slabs and served for slicing. Shogun Cineatar is also here. It being a crab means it's edible, but it's very thin compared to its cousin the daimyo, so there's less meat per animal, so I can't put it higher up. The Troodon is either good or really good meat. For starters, it's a hybrid between a turtle and a frog, which are two things we eat a lot of, or at least we have. It has a duck bill and it's pretty fatty. So if it's more of a duck and not a platypus like I originally thought, it'll be pretty good. Duck meat is very fatty and it's known to be very rich as far as bird meat is concerned. It's big, it's slow moving, it's fatty. I think this meat would be very good. The Troodon soup, gallons of soup, served to entire villages. Finally, we have a tier I would like to call the gourmet tier. This is the S tier. These are animals that are not only comparatively eaten enough, I think they would have a high amount of their meat comparatively, since Monster Hunter is all about hunting sustainably. Let's open the borderline. Great Jaggy. I know Great Jaggy isn't in the game, but I'm counting it here because it'd be weird if I didn't rank it along with the small ones. Great Jaggy might be a little too bush meaty because, it's a predator, but it's fatty, it has a nice varied diet, and I think it'd have a very nice bacony taste and texture to the tail meat in particular. I think the female Jaguar definitely look tasty. But I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe I should go further down. Bulldrome definitely belongs here. It's a big boar, and we like boar, we like pigs, so it definitely goes here. Also here we have Rathalos and Rathian. Despite what I said about predators the entire video, in canon apparently Rathalos is used in a lot of dishes. The tails and the ribs are used in high-end restaurants, and there's said to be a whiskey created using the Rathalos fire. I'm not sure if this is a shark fin soup thing where it's not super good, but it's like our rich people, or if it actually tastes good. Now, logically, if Rathalos is gourmet, then so would the female. Rathian is poisonous, though, so I think Rathian is actually the most food-like animal in this tier list, even more than Volvi. It'd be a high-end animal with meat people say is good, but you need chefs to have a lot of training to not kill whoever eating it. I know I kind of broke the rules here, but I'm making it. So, yeah. Also, Rathalos, the tail specifically, is said to be highly sought out after a delicacy. I think the meat would be very nice and tender in texture, but I'm not entirely sure if the entire animal is good or just the tail. But I feel comfortable putting it up here. Finally, we have the monster I really want to eat. Monster I think the most tasty out of any monster in Monster Hunter. So, backstory, I like crab. I really like crab, but cracking that shell means you can only eat crab so quickly, not to mention that I, as a lazy American, do not like working for my food all much. But if the crab was bigger, theoretically you could eat more of it with less effort. Therefore, the best monster to eat in Monster Hunter Rise is Daimyo Hermitaur. It is literally just a big crab, which I particularly would really want, especially that claw. Get me a Daimyo Hermitaur boil, please. Hermitaur boil. Mangoes, pineapples, and other acidic tropical fruits are used to give this a rich, complex flavor. So, there you have it. This took forever to make. Thank you very much. They gave me a list of all these recipes I mentioned throughout this entire video. It was funny. I really liked them. They're actually a chef. They like to cook, and us talking about it gave me a lot of ideas of where stuff goes. Also, yeah, please follow me on Twitch. We might get future video ideas. Also, I do video editing. I did most of this video editing on Twitch. That'd be pretty good. If this video gets successful, I might this make for other generations. But yeah, so thank you very much. Have a nice day. I will see you later.